Today is awesome because we are going over something super important. I want to teach you guys how to master your dynamics and master your intros. This is what the pros do, like Skrillex, Virtual Riot, and Flux Pavilion. I want you guys to learn the tips and techniques needed. Dynamics in music play a crucial role in creating depth, emotion, and overall impact. This is a future song that I'm going to be coming out with. It's called Thought Wave. Dynamics are basically the difference between quiet sounds and loud sounds, or even the quiet parts of a song and the loud part of a song. So we will be paying attention to the LUFS, the loudness units, while we're listening, so we can see how loud it is in the intro and then how loud it gets in the drop. Let's check it out. Okay, cool. That's how we get down. Different levels of volume. It's not the same level the whole time, which makes it very impactful. When it comes to emotions, the dynamics help express and intensify the emotions in the music, which you could feel. With the structure, the dynamics shape the structure and the flow of a song. With the attention, the dynamics keep the listener engaged and interested. With contrast, dynamics create variety and contrast between different parts of a song. And then with the impact, well-executed dynamics make the music more impactful and memorable. These are really important things when it comes to music. If you even think about old orchestral music, it was super quiet in some sections and super loud. And that's kind of the main idea that we're going for. We want things to impact people. So this is how we do it. When we listen to the intro, you're going to see that the LUFS are going to be quieter. So intro here. So you see, it's about -10, -9 in the intro. What I learned is that in like podcasts and stuff, if people are just speaking like vocals, usually that's like -16 LUFS. So our music should for sure be always louder than -16 LUFS. So in the intro, right here, we're going about -11 to -9. Then when we get to the build-up at bar 9, it starts to hit like -6 LUFS. That's a perfect visual representation of what we got going on here. So the intro, we have -10 LUFS. We get to the build-up, we start hitting -7 LUFS. Pre-drop is also -7 LUFS. So that is going to be quieter. And if you heard during the pre-drop, it's going to be you know, almost silent and only the vocals are playing. So this gives a lot of contrast. So you don't have the build up playing or in the pre-drop because we want the drop to sound more impactful. When we get to the drop, this is going to be hitting -5 LUFS at the beginning, and then you'll see when the yoy starts, that sustained yoy, and it gets like -4.5 LUFS, which is the loudest it gets in the song. Usually, like Marauda's Tear Out songs are -3 LUFS, and some songs get to -2, -1, which is really, really loud. Anything above -5 LUFS is starting to damage our hearing and become very, very loud. So just be careful producing music this loud, and keep in mind when you're this loud, it's going to start distorting. So we have to compensate for the distortion and learn how to mix clean, which we'll go over. EQ and compression is the way to go. So you see -7 to -5, -4, and then when we get to the end of the drop, we actually have like something that almost introduces silence, like this big impact. So it's like quiet, and then we go back to the sounds. I did that on purpose because if we just went straight to here at bar 51, it wouldn't have as much dynamics. So this little section of like silence almost creates a huge dip and impact in the sound and makes it more impactful when bar 51 comes and the melodies come back. So these are dynamic tricks that we can do. Now, when it comes to dynamics, there's multiple types of dynamics, right? There's dynamics in your intro. There's dynamics in the drop. There's dynamics in your master. There's also dynamics in like a regular sample or an instrument. If you think of a clarinet or a flute, when they're playing the instrument, they play very softly and then sometimes loud. So, same thing with a guitar. It'll like strum low volume and then strum very loud. That's dynamics. It's really important that when we're creating this music, we retain dynamics. When you use compression, the whole point of compression is so that it squishes the sound and balances the sound together. So it makes the quiet parts of the song loud and the loud parts of the song quiet. So it like balances together, and then we get that whole signal and make it loud, which is the makeup gain. But when we do that, it squashes the signal and it kills and eliminates dynamics, which is extremely important to remember. You don't want to over compress unless you're doing it for creative purposes, which we do a lot in dubstep when sound designing basses. But in other parts of the music, you want to be careful. You don't want to over compress. So OTT, like over the top compression, is something you want to be careful with. Use minimal compression. So the multiband dynamics is the best compressor I would use. Sometimes I'll just go to my buses, put on multiband dynamics, and then I can mess with these settings. So I can make it very minimal or like a medium. And if I want super crazy, I go OTT. But I use that a lot to control my compression, to control dynamics, and to make things louder. When we look at the intro, I make choices to make these things not as loud. So when I choose my instruments, they're usually softer instruments. And I'm using filters to make sure that it like lowers the volume and filters the frequencies. This is creating dynamics, and this is used a lot in dance music, using these filters and making sure that you can, you know, go quiet and then open up the filter to get louder. While that filter is playing, this main lead, you hear this vocal, it starts to come in at the build-up. So at the beginning, there's no vocal, so it's a little bit quieter. Then the vocal comes to introduce, and then it starts looping for this build-up. This is one way I make it louder in this section and kind of transition into the drop, which is the loudest. So I'm thinking the whole time, quiet, louder, and then boom, hit them with the loud. When we're in the drop, there's going to be different techniques that I use. With the call and response, that alone is creating dynamics because we're not constantly playing the same sound over and over again. So you can see with the call and response, downbeat, and then it has like the main basses that go after. Now this section right here, this fill section, this is where we kill everything and then only let a couple things play. So the couple things that we let play are like breaks, break beats. And while those break beats play, we have this like vocal. So there's like little vocal fills. These fills create dynamics in the drop. And that's how we incorporate like little bits of silence so that the whole drop isn't super loud. We go from like loud 90% of the time, and then at the end of the phrase, which is the end of the 4 bars, then we introduce a fill. So we go like from loud to soft, to loud to soft. We do that through all phrases. This one's a little bit longer. This one has a vocal. And then the break at the end. This is an important one because this is kind of like, so the middle of the drop is right here. So this is kind of like the fill right before the middle of the drop. And that's an important one, so it's a little bit longer. Now in this section, we are doing a cool trick where we are using dynamics to like go back and forth between our mid basses. So usually the basses are like really loud and grouped together like this. But in this section here, we're only letting this bass play, which is lower volume. So it sounds different with the sub compared to the other basses that are loud with the sub. So then we can kind of go back and forth, and you can listen here how this sounds. Let that run. We'll go back to this one. So we have a lot of different like dynamic tricks going on here. So listening. We have this fill, which has a tape stop. This is the call, which is like, it's only this sound playing. So it's very minimal. It's almost silent except this. Like there's no sub. This is where the sub comes. We have another fill, and then we have another call. We just keep back and forth, back and forth. This is later on in the drop. So, you know, this is what I like strategically did. I made these decisions to have more dynamic shifts later on in the drop. And it helps with creating variation and making things less boring for the listener. And then at the last phrase, we just run it back to how it originally was at the beginning of this drop. Now, I don't know if you heard this, but this tape stop right here, this is stopping the whole song except for the drums. And this also creates dynamic shifts. It literally, it's like a pause and play on the song. So it's going to kill the volume almost. You could literally kill the volume if you wanted to, like this. And go crazy with it. So these tape stops, you can see, are used throughout the drop to create even more dynamic shifts. Just constantly thinking about ways I can go back and forth with volume to make it seem more psychedelic. Dance music is dope that way. That's how we get down. So then, remember, when I start this song, I'm going to start with the drop. I'm going to make that loud first. I'm going to try to hit like -5 LUFS at least if I'm making dubstep. And then it can go up to -4, -3, -2 if it needs be. That's fine. But then I'm going to make sure that my intro and build up are going to be less loud. We want it to be quieter. So in this song, I did -10 to start, and then we go to -4 maximum. But other songs are different. Some songs have loud intros, and then it gets quiet in the break, and then it gets loud again in the drop. So you can use creative ways to use dynamics. You just have to pay attention and keep them in mind when making your songs. It'll make a big difference, and you guys will kill the game with these tips. If you need help, hit me up, ask questions. Go in the Discord if you want to hang out with people who are also making music just like you. I will be putting some of these racks and some of these cool sounds from this upcoming song in my Patreon, so get those if you want. And have a great day. Keep on making bangers. Peace out. Later.